Hey everyone, and welcome. If you're a parent of an autistic child, you know that navigating their world can be full of unique challenges and incredible joys. One of the biggest hurdles many families face is anxiety. It's a word we all know, but in autistic children, it can look, feel, and function very differently. Today, we're starting a journey to understand what's really happening in the autistic brain during moments of anxiety. This is the first step toward helping your child feel safe, supported, and truly capable. So, what makes anxiety in autism unique? It's not just that it's more common. Studies show that up to half of all autistic youth experience significant anxiety. The real difference is in how it shows up. While a neurotypical child might worry about a test or a social situation, an autistic child's anxiety is often triggered by sensory overload, a sudden change in routine, or the intense pressure to fit in. Their expression of this anxiety can also look different. Instead of saying, "I'm scared," you might see meltdowns, shutdowns, or an increase in repetitive behaviors. It's so easy to misread these signals as defiance or a bad mood, but often the root cause is pure, overwhelming anxiety. Recognizing this is the game changer. Let's look at what's happening on a neurological level. Anxiety for anyone is linked to a hyper-aroused nervous system. But in an autistic brain, this is amplified. The amygdala, our brain's threat detector, can be overactivated by things like fluorescent lights, the hum of a refrigerator, or the texture of a shirt. This is sensory hypersensitivity. On top of that, differences in executive functioning, the brain's ability to plan, predict, and switch gears, can make the world feel incredibly unpredictable and threatening. It's not that your child is overreacting. It's that their brain is genuinely perceiving a threat that others might not even notice. So, what are the early signs you can watch for? Anxiety isn't just an emotion. It's a full-body experience. You might notice physical signs like frequent stomach aches, headaches, or trouble sleeping. Emotionally, you could see increased irritability, sudden tearfulness, or what seems like a very low frustration tolerance. Cognitively, they might have trouble concentrating, ask the same questions over and over, or jump to worst-case scenarios. And behaviorally, you might see them avoiding certain places, becoming more rigid with their routines, or stimming more frequently as a way to self-regulate. A great tip is to keep a simple worry diary. Just jot down the situation, the reaction, and how long it took to recover. Over time, this can help you see clear patterns and identify specific triggers. Now let's talk about something incredibly important, but often invisible: masking. Many autistic children learn to camouflage their anxiety to meet social expectations. They might force eye contact even when it's painful, mimic the social behavior of their peers to hide their panic, or smile and nod while internally feeling completely overwhelmed. This is why you might get a report that your child was fine all day at school, only for them to completely fall apart the second they get home to their safe space. That emotional explosion isn't a tantrum. It's the release of all the anxiety they've been holding. It's a critical signal that their internal stress is much higher than it appears on the surface. This brings us to the deep connection between anxiety and sensory processing. For many autistic children, the world is a sensory minefield. The loud clang of a school bell, the visual chaos of a crowded hallway, the scratchy tag on a new shirt, or the strong smells in the cafeteria can all trigger a fight-or-flight response. Imagine experiencing that multiple times a day. Over time, this constant sensory-induced anxiety drains their energy, makes it harder to think and learn, and naturally leads to avoiding those overwhelming situations. So, how do we counteract this? With two of the most powerful tools in our parenting toolbox: predictability and control. Autistic children often feel most anxious when things are unpredictable. Transitions, vague instructions, or having no say in their daily routine can all spike their anxiety. Predictability acts as a protective buffer. Simple things like using a visual schedule, giving a 5-minute warning before switching activities, and offering choices whenever possible. Like, Do you want to wear the blue shirt or the red one? Can dramatically reduce that feeling of being out of control and therefore lower their anxiety. Without these supports, anxiety can create a vicious cycle. A trigger, like a noisy classroom, leads to an anxious response, like avoidance or a meltdown. This might lead to external consequences, like missing a lesson or being misunderstood by a teacher. This, in turn, makes the child even more vigilant and anxious about future situations. Our job is to help them break that cycle, not with punishment or pressure, but with validation, predictability, and a whole lot of patience. Let's imagine a child named Maya. She's 9, loves to read, but she absolutely refuses to go to the school cafeteria. Her teachers say she's being defiant, but her mom notices she gets pale and tense whenever there's a loud noise. Maya's behavior isn't defiance. It's anxiety, fueled by the sensory overload of the noisy, unpredictable cafeteria. A collaborative strategy would be to create a predictable lunch routine. Let her use noise-canceling headphones and maybe start by having her eat in a quieter space, gradually reintroducing the cafeteria at a pace she can handle. It's also important to remember that anxiety isn't inherently bad. It's a protective signal. It tells us when a situation is overwhelming or unsafe. The goal isn't to eliminate anxiety entirely, but to regulate it. We want to help our kids manage it so it doesn't become chronic and debilitating. This means finding a balance. We can't just shield them from every trigger because that prevents them from learning coping skills. But we also can't push them too fast because that can escalate panic and break their trust in us. The sweet spot is gentle, gradual exposure with sensory supports and plenty of communication. By understanding the unique ways anxiety works in the autistic brain, the neurobiology, the sensory triggers, the role of masking, we are so much better equipped to provide the right kind of support. It's not about fixing them. It's about creating a world that fits them. Hello, and welcome back to our series on supporting autistic children. Today, we're diving deep into one of the most critical topics for parents. Understanding what triggers anxiety in the autistic brain. Anxiety doesn't just appear out of nowhere. For many autistic children, it's a completely rational response to a world that feels unpredictable, overwhelming, or confusing. By understanding what sparks that anxiety, you can shift from simply reacting to crises to proactively creating a sense of safety. So, why do these triggers matter so much? Think of it this way. Every child has their limits, but autistic children often have narrower sensory and cognitive thresholds. When those limits are crossed, their nervous system can go from calm to complete overload in an instant. This isn't just worrying too much. It's a neurological stress response. Recognizing these triggers helps you anticipate challenges, reduce environmental stress, and support your child's emotional regulation before a meltdown even begins. Let's start with the most common trigger, sensory overload. Research consistently shows a powerful link between sensory processing differences and anxiety. When a child's brain can't filter out all the sounds, sights, and sensations of the world, it can feel chaotic and unsafe. A school bell might sound like an explosion. Flickering lights might feel physically painful. The texture of a shirt tag can be a constant source of irritation. The brain becomes so flooded with sensory data that it's impossible to focus, communicate, or stay calm. So what can you do? It's about making small, powerful accommodations. Try noise-canceling headphones in loud places like shopping malls or assemblies. Offer sunglasses or a cap under bright fluorescent lights. Pay attention to clothing. Soft, tag-free fabrics can make a world of difference, and always respect their physical boundaries. Ask before giving a hug, and consider tools like weighted blankets for calming pressure. Remember, these sensory needs don't just disappear as a child gets older. When you validate and accommodate them early on, you teach them how to cope for life. Next, let's talk about social and masking pressures. Many autistic children feel intense anxiety about social rules they just can't decode. They might desperately want to connect but have no idea how. Things like being forced to make eye contact, navigating unstructured group projects, or trying to understand sarcasm can be incredibly stressful. To cope, many children learn to mask. They force themselves to perform social behaviors that appear neurotypical. But this is exhausting. It drains their energy reserves and often leads to what many parents call the after-school collapse. A child might seem perfectly fine at school, using every ounce of their energy to meet expectations, only to fall apart the moment they get home. This isn't manipulation, it's sheer exhaustion. As a parent, you can create a safe haven. Normalize their differences at home. Let them know you don't have to pretend to be someone else here. Focus on building one-on-one friendships instead of forcing big group interactions, and talk to teachers about the fatigue that comes with masking. Another huge trigger is transitions and unpredictability. Autistic brains thrive on routine and predictability because it reduces the mental effort needed to navigate the day. Any disruption to that expected pattern, even a positive surprise, can trigger a fear of the unknown. Think about the common transition points in a day: the morning rush to get out the door, shifting between subjects at school, having a substitute teacher, or even bigger changes like holidays and vacations. Each one is a potential source of anxiety. The key here is to make the world more predictable. Visual schedules are a game changer. Use a chart with pictures or words to show what's happening next. Give countdowns. In 5 minutes, we'll put the toys away. Preview new situations with photos or stories. A simple picture of a new classroom can ease a lot of fear, and whenever you can, avoid last-minute surprises. As the autistic advocate Jody Harewood says, predictability is safety, control is calm. Performance and academic pressures are also major triggers. Many autistic children struggle with performance anxiety, which is often rooted in perfectionism and a fear of making mistakes. Their black and white thinking can magnify stress. If they make one small error on a test, they might feel like a total failure. Timed tests, oral presentations, vague feedback like "good job" or being corrected publicly can all be incredibly anxiety-inducing. To counter this, focus on effort over outcome. Praise their hard work, not just the final grade. Give clear, specific feedback. You did a great job organizing your ideas in that essay. Work with teachers to find alternatives to timed tests and explore ways to reduce performance pressure in the classroom. Now, let's consider communication barriers. When a child can't express what's wrong, their anxiety can quickly escalate. Communication differences, like literal interpretation of language, can make it hard for them to describe their inner world. You might see signs like them repeating questions for reassurance, freezing up when asked a direct question, or becoming nonverbal under stress. They aren't being difficult. They're overwhelmed. You can help by using visual emotion scales, like a chart with different faces, to help them show you how they feel. Offer simple choices instead of open-ended questions, and validate their struggle with phrases like, "It's okay not to talk right now. I'm here for you." Learn to read their nonverbal cues. Pacing, stimming, or silence can all be signals of rising anxiety. It's also crucial to understand the cup theory of autistic stress. Imagine every stressor, a loud noise, a social demand, a change in routine, as a drop of water filling an internal cup. For many autistic individuals, this cup is smaller and fills up much faster. Once it's full, even one more tiny drop, like a scratchy tag or an unexpected question, can cause it to overflow, resulting in a meltdown or shutdown. This means that proactive rest is not a luxury, it's a necessity. Schedule daily decompression time for your child. Protect those recovery periods after school or social events. Look for patterns. Is anxiety higher on certain days? Work with their school to build sensory breaks into their schedule. We also can't ignore medical and physiological factors. Anxiety can be amplified by physical discomforts that are often overlooked, but are common in autistic individuals. Things like gastrointestinal issues, poor sleep, hormonal changes during puberty, or even side effects from medication can all contribute to heightened anxiety. Keep up with regular medical checkups, prioritize a consistent sleep routine, and pay attention to any links between diet and behavior. A child's physical well-being is the absolute foundation for their emotional regulation. Finally, we need to acknowledge the role of trauma and learned fear. Sadly, many autistic children face misunderstanding, are punished for their natural ways of self-regulating like stimming, or experience social exclusion. Over time, these negative experiences can create a form of chronic trauma. They learn to associate certain environments, like the school cafeteria or a crowded playground, with fear and rejection. Being told to stop overreacting or being forced into a distressing situation can leave lasting scars. As a parent, your role is to be their safe person. Model emotional validation. I see this is really hard for you. Let's take a break. Advocate for them. Teach them self-advocacy skills, and work with trauma-informed professionals who understand their unique needs. So, how do you figure out your child's unique triggers? Every child's anxiety fingerprint is different. The best way to learn is to become a detective. Start by keeping a simple log. When does anxiety spike? Where does it happen? Who is around? What happened right before? Over time, you'll start to see patterns related to sensory, social, or other stressors. You can then create a personalized trigger map and develop coping strategies for each category. Let me share a quick story about a boy named Eli. At 7 years old, every school morning was a battle, filled with tears and refusal. His parents thought it was just school anxiety. But when they looked closer, they found the real triggers: the scratchy, uncomfortable school uniform, the rushed morning routine, and a deep fear of the noisy school assemblies. By making a few changes, switching to softer clothing, using a visual checklist for the morning, and giving him headphones, Eli's anxiety dropped dramatically. The school even agreed to let him skip assemblies for a while. This shows how addressing the root triggers can transform what looks like a behavior problem into a manageable stress response. Understanding these triggers is the first, most powerful step. It's not about coddling your child. It's about providing the essential support they need to feel regulated, safe, and ready to learn. Have you ever heard an autistic child say, "When I know what's coming, I can breathe again"? Those words, from a 14-year-old, perfectly capture today's topic: why predictability and control are the foundations of safety for the autistic brain. So why does predictability matter so much? It's not about being a drill sergeant or having a perfect, rigid schedule. It's about knowing what to expect. For many autistic children, the world feels like a constant storm of chaos. You've got unpredictable sensory input, social rules that seem to change without notice, and language that's full of hidden meanings. All of this signals danger to the nervous system. When events are predictable, the brain's threat response calms down. The amygdala, which is like the brain's fire alarm, doesn't get triggered as often. This frees up precious energy, allowing a child to use it for learning, connecting, and playing instead of constantly being on the defensive. The science backs this up. Studies show that the autistic brain processes new or unexpected things differently. When faced with a surprise, there's often a heightened release of the stress hormone, cortisol. In simple terms, uncertainty feels genuinely unsafe. So, predictability equals regulation. It helps children trust that their world isn't going to betray them. Now, a common worry I hear from parents is, "Won't all this structure make my child too rigid?" It's a valid concern, but predictability and rigidity are two very different things. Predictability is when the environment is consistent and things are explained in advance. This reduces anxiety and builds confidence. Rigidity, on the other hand, is when the environment is completely inflexible and allows for no adaptation. That actually increases distress, when change eventually happens. Healthy predictability is the bridge that leads to flexibility because it gives a child the structure and confidence they need to handle changes when they reintroduced with warning and a little bit of control. Let's talk about how anxiety fits into this. Autistic anxiety thrives in uncertainty. Every little unpredictable moment can be a micro-stressor. Will the teacher call on me? What if the fire alarm rings today? Is dinner going to be late? These questions, which often go unspoken, fuel a state of chronic vigilance. It's like being on high alert all day, every day. Over time, that constant vigilance completely exhausts their emotional reserves, leading to meltdowns or shutdowns. When you, as a parent, create a predictable rhythm at home, consistent meal times, a regular bedtime, even predictable ways you communicate, the child's body learns that the world follows patterns. That sense of stability becomes an emotional anchor in the storm. So, how do we build this predictability at home? Routines are the scaffolding that supports internal calm. Think about consistent wake-up times, meals, and bedtimes. A predictable decompression time after school is huge. You can also use visual calendars with stickers or color codes to map out the week. And simple transition cues like saying, "In 10 minutes it's time for your shower," can make a world of difference. Children internalize these patterns when they are shown, not just told. That's why visual tools are so powerful. They reduce the strain on working memory. Speaking of visual tools, let's dive into visual schedules. They help bridge the gap between what's said and what's understood. You can use picture charts for morning and evening routines, a whiteboard for older kids, or a simple first-then board. You know, a first homework, then screen time. Countdown timers are also amazing for transitions. Why do these work so well? Visuals are concrete, consistent, and visible, the exact opposite of verbal instructions, which can be ambiguous and disappear as soon as they're spoken. For many autistic children, visuals literally make time visible. Of course, change is a part of life, but how we introduce change determines the stress level. To prevent panic, give advance warning. Tomorrow, Grandma will pick you up from school instead of me. Explain the why behind the change. Unexplained changes can feel random and scary. You can mark it on a calendar or show a photo of Grandma. And always, always acknowledge their feelings. It's okay to feel a little worried about new things. Predictable change teaches flexibility without creating chaos. Another fantastic tool is a transition object. This could be a small toy, a special stone, or a keychain that helps a child carry a sense of familiarity from one place to another. It's an emotional bridge between home and school. You can pack a comfort kit with a fidget, a small photo, or a calming scent. Or let your child choose one anchor item to take with them each day. These tangible tools send a message to the brain. You are still safe, even in a new place. Now let's talk about the power of choice. Giving your child control doesn't mean letting them run the house. It means giving them meaningful agency within safe boundaries. Research has shown that a lack of control can activate the same neural pathways as physical pain. For autistic kids who constantly feel like things are happening to them, this can lead to a deep sense of helplessness. But when you offer small, simple choices, they regain a sense of ownership, and that quiets anxiety. You can offer a choice of sequence. Do you want to brush your teeth first, or get into your pajamas first? A choice of tool. Do you want to use a pencil or a marker for your drawing? Or a choice of coping strategy. Do you need your headphones or your squishy ball right now? Each little choice sends a powerful message. You have influence over your world. This is all great for home, but what about school? School is often a perfect storm of unpredictability. There are loud bells, crowded hallways, changing subjects, and substitute teachers. Even well-meaning educators might not realize that a simple change in the seating plan or a surprise quiz can trigger a full-blown threat response in an autistic student. This is where collaboration is key. Parents can work with schools to build a bridge of predictability. You can share your child's schedule each morning. You can ask for a heads up about upcoming changes, like a fire drill or a substitute teacher. You can ask teachers to post the daily plan on the board. When home and school work together, predictability becomes a shared goal, not just one person's responsibility. Let me share a quick story about Aiden, a 10-year-old boy. He used to have a meltdown every single time there was a substitute teacher. The school initially labeled it as defiance, but his parents noticed a pattern. An unannounced change led to a loss of predictability, which led to panic, which resulted in a meltdown. So together, Aiden's parents and teachers created a sub-plan. The teacher would email home the day before if possible. They created a visual card that said substitute day. Aiden got a short, reassuring check-in with the classroom aide in the morning, and he was allowed to carry a transition object. Within weeks, the meltdowns stopped completely. This story shows that predictability can transform fear into confidence, not through discipline, but through forewarning and control. Finally, remember that predictability applies to our emotional responses too. When a parent's reaction to distress is consistent, calm, validating, and safe, children learn emotional stability. If their distress is sometimes met with anger, sometimes with comfort, and sometimes with silence, they learn to fear the unpredictability in people, not just in events. Try to use a consistent, calm tone. Avoid punishing anxiety-driven behaviors, and reassure them you're not in trouble for feeling upset. Emotional predictability is just as vital as a predictable schedule. As kids grow, this will evolve. For little ones, it's all about routines and visual aids. For older kids, it's about teaching problem-solving steps and offering choices. And for teens, it's about collaborative planning and respecting their autonomy through communication. Predictability should evolve to foster independence, not dependence. To sum up, predictability creates safety, and small choices provide a sense of control. These two things together are incredibly powerful tools for reducing anxiety and building confidence in your child. Have you ever wished for a reset button for your child's anxiety? That feeling when their little body is buzzing with stress and you just want to wrap them in a bubble of calm? You're not alone. The amazing news is that you can build that bubble right within your own home. When your child learns how to calm their body, the whole family can finally breathe again. First, let's reframe how we think about coping for our autistic kids. It's not just about managing big feelings. For them, coping is about stabilizing a sensory system that's often on high alert, restoring a sense of predictability in a chaotic world, and rebuilding precious energy reserves. Their nervous systems can get stuck in a state of hyperarousal, meaning they're constantly on guard. Your home can become the sanctuary that tells their brain, you are safe here, you can power down. So how do we build this coping ecosystem? It rests on three powerful pillars: regulation, routine, and relationship. Let's break down each one. Regulation is all about calming the body and the senses. For many autistic children, anxiety doesn't start in their thoughts, it starts in their senses. A light that's too bright, a tag that's too scratchy, a background noise everyone else tunes out, these can trigger a full-blown stress response. So we must start with the body. One of the most effective tools is creating a calm corner or a cozy zone. This isn't a timeout spot, it's a sanctuary. It's a space your child can go to willingly to feel safe and in control. Fill it with things that soothe their senses. Think soft weighted blankets, dimmable lights like a salt lamp, noise-canceling headphones, and their favorite fidgets or squishy toys. The golden rule? Let your child help design it. When they have ownership, they're far more likely to use it. Another superpower for regulation is deep pressure. Firm hugs, being wrapped up like a burrito in a blanket, or using a weighted lap pad can work wonders. This type of input, called proprioception, literally helps ground the nervous system, often reducing heart rate and anxiety. Just remember to always ask for consent. For some kids, a gentle squeeze is a hug for their nervous system. For others, it's not. Watch their cues. And what about stimming? Rocking, hand flapping, humming? These are not behaviors to be stopped. They are a natural, built-in self-regulation tool. Stimming is your child's way of discharging anxiety and finding their center. Think of it as their body's language of safety. When we allow safe stims without judgment, we are honoring their way of coping. Now for our second pillar, routine. Anxiety absolutely thrives on uncertainty. Predictable routines are the antidote. They reduce the mental load of guessing what comes next. You don't need a rigid minute-by-minute schedule. Start with 3 to 5 daily anchors, solid points in the day that are always the same. A consistent wake-up ritual, the same after-school decompression time, a predictable bedtime routine. These anchors become islands of safety in a sea of unpredictability. Transitions can be especially tough. Moving from playtime to homework or getting ready to leave the house can be a major trigger. Create micro-routines for these moments. For example, okay, 5 more minutes of Lego, then we put the Lego in the box, then we get our shoes on. Using a visual timer can be a game changer here. This rhythm becomes automatic, teaching their brain that change follows a known, safe path. Our third and most important pillar is relationship. No tool or routine can replace the power of a calm, connected parent. This is called co-regulation. Your nervous system is a powerful tool for your child. When you speak softly, breathe slowly, and stay present, your child's nervous system reads your calm and learns it's safe to power down. You become their emotional anchor. It's about modeling calm, not mirroring their panic. When you see their anxiety rising, instead of getting frustrated, try a calm, curious approach. Use simple, predictable phrases like, "I see you're feeling worried. I'm right here with you." Or, "Let's take some slow breaths together." You are literally lending them your calm until they can find their own. So, how do we weave this all together into daily life? Let's talk about the infamous after-school restraint collapse. You know, when your child holds it together all day at school, only to melt down the second they walk in the door. That's because home is their safe space to finally release all that pent-up stress. Instead of bombarding them with questions about their day, create a 30-minute decompression window. No demands, just a favorite snack, some quiet time, or sensory play. Let them recharge their batteries before you even think about homework. And let's not forget the power of their special interests. Whether it's dinosaurs, trains, or drawing anime characters, these passions are not just hobbies, they are regulation portals. When a child is deeply immersed in their interest, their heart rate and anxiety levels often drop. Schedule daily interest time with no agenda. It's one of the most powerful self-care tools they have. Finally, remember rest. Autistic individuals often experience post-anxiety exhaustion. It can look like laziness, but it's actually their brain and body in recovery mode. Honor their need for downtime without guilt. Rest isn't avoidance. It's a critical part of the coping cycle. Building these routines takes time and patience. Some days will be messy, and that's okay. The goal isn't perfection, it's connection. It's about creating a home where your child knows, deep in their bones, that they are safe, understood, and loved, exactly as they are. For many autistic children, school is where they grow, but it's also a major source of anxiety. The noise, the constant changes, the social pressures, it can all be incredibly overwhelming. A fire drill that's a minor disruption for one child can feel like a genuine threat to another. Home is their safe haven, but school often feels like a world of uncertainty they can't control. This is where you, the parent, become a bridge builder. Effective communication with your child's teacher is that bridge. It's the difference between a teacher seeing defiance and a teacher seeing overwhelm. It's what helps your child feel understood and safe, even when you're not there. As one parent shared, when we finally built a calm, two-way relationship with the teacher, everything changed. My daughter stopped dreading mornings. She knew her teacher got her. So how do we spot school-based anxiety? Often, it shows up in the body before the brain. A sudden tummy ache on Monday morning or a headache before a big assembly might not be an excuse. It could be their nervous system screaming, "I don't feel safe." Let's break down the common triggers. First, sensory overload. Loud hallways, flickering fluorescent lights, crowded lunchrooms, and unexpected bells can be physically painful. It's like being in a rock concert you can't escape. When a child tries to avoid these situations, they aren't being difficult. They're trying to protect themselves. Second, social uncertainty. Think about group projects or unstructured recess. For many autistic kids, it's a minefield of unwritten social rules. They live with a constant fear of getting it wrong, saying the wrong thing, standing in the wrong place, or being misunderstood. This isn't about not wanting to make friends, it's about the deep anxiety that comes with not knowing how. And third, academic pressure. Even if a child is incredibly smart, anxiety around executive functions, like planning a multi-step project or understanding a vague deadline, can be paralyzing. Their brain might be screaming, "It's too much, I'll fail anyway." This leads to avoidance, which looks a lot like laziness, but is actually rooted in fear. So, how do we start building that bridge with the school? The key is to be proactive. Don't wait for a crisis. Your first step is to prepare to talk with teachers. Approach them as a partner, not an adversary. Start with appreciation. "I know you have a busy classroom, and I'm so grateful for your support." This framing opens the door for collaboration. A fantastic tool is the one-page profile. It's a simple, visual snapshot of your child. On it, you can list things like, "What helps me feel calm?" "Things that make me anxious," and "my strengths." Keep it positive and practical. Instead of a long list of problems, you're giving the teacher a toolkit for success. It shows them how accommodations can unlock your child's potential. It's also helpful to keep simple records. Note when meltdowns happen, or what a teacher says in an email. This isn't about building a case against anyone. It's about spotting patterns. When you can say, "I've noticed he gets overwhelmed after long assemblies," you're providing useful data that helps everyone. Now let's talk about communication systems. Inconsistency is a huge source of stress for parents. One teacher emails, another doesn't. At the start of the year, ask, "What's the best way for us to share small updates?" A simple homeschool notebook can be a game changer. You can write, "Slept poorly, feeling sensitive today," and the teacher can respond, "Used headphones during assembly, had a calm morning." And remember, share the wins. Communication shouldn't only be about problems. A quick email saying, "He came home so excited about the science project," builds goodwill and motivates teachers to keep using the strategies that work. A big part of your role is to translate your child's behavior. When a teacher sees a child refusing to enter the classroom, they might think, oppositional. You can reframe it as, "He's signaling overwhelm. Can we try a 5-minute warning before the bell?" You're not making excuses. You're explaining the why behind the behavior. You're guiding them to see anxiety, not defiance. Let's get even more practical with some tools. For those busy days, email templates can be a lifesaver. A simple, pre-written message can clearly explain a situation without the stress of finding the right words every time. You can also share the visual supports you use at home, like a calm down card or a visual schedule. Consistency between home and school is incredibly powerful. Remember, support goes beyond just one teacher. There's a whole team: teaching assistants, special needs coordinators, and school counselors. Map out who does what. Know who to contact for different concerns. This way, you're building a safety net around your child. When you do need to meet, keep it solution-focused. Share your observations, suggest practical accommodations like a quiet workspace or extended deadlines, and agree on a date to check in. Respecting their time with a clear, concise agenda makes them more likely to partner with you. Of course, setbacks will happen. A new substitute teacher, a school trip, these can all trigger a spike in anxiety. When they do, your calm is your superpower. Stay steady, observe what's happening, and avoid blame. Then, revisit your communication plan. A setback isn't a failure. It's a data point that helps you adjust your strategy. And finally, know your rights. Depending on where you live, your child may be entitled to a formal support plan, like an IEP or an EHCP. These plans legally ensure accommodations are provided. But even without one, you can advocate for reasonable adjustments. Think about it this way. Proactive communication prevents crises. Simple tools like a one-page profile and a communication notebook can transform the school day. And by translating anxiety into language teachers understand, you empower them to become your child's greatest ally. It all starts with a simple conversation, a shared goal, and the belief that together, you can make school a place where your child feels safe, understood, and ready to learn. We've covered incredible strategies you can use at home and how to build a strong partnership with your child's school. But the real magic, the key to lasting change, happens when we bring it all together. This is about creating a consistent, supportive world for your child, where home and school are two sides of the same coin. Long-term anxiety management isn't about scattered tricks. It's about building a seamless system that fosters security and self-belief. As one parent shared, once we were on the same page at home and school, our mornings became calmer, homework became less stressful, and my child started thriving. Let's build that reality for your family. First, we need to map the anxiety ecosystem. Think of yourself as a detective. Get a notebook and start tracking. What situations, both at home and at school, trigger anxiety? How does your child respond? Maybe it's meltdowns, avoidance, or increased stimming. And most importantly, what helps them calm down in each place? Look for patterns. Do morning transitions trigger anxiety both at home and during school drop-off? Does a specific sensory tool work wonders everywhere? By mapping this out, you create a clear blueprint for synchronized support, which is the foundation for everything else. Now, let's build a shared strategy toolkit. Imagine having a toolbox that both you and the teacher can pull from, using the same tools and the same language. This could include visual supports like calm-down cards your child can use anywhere to signal they are feeling overwhelmed, or step-by-step visual schedules for transitions that look the same at home and in the classroom. It also includes comfort items. If a weighted lap pad or specific fidget toy helps at home, let's make sure it's available and understood at school. This consistency is incredibly reassuring. Perhaps the most powerful tool is shared language. Agree on a few simple phrases your child can use to express their feelings, like, "I need a break," or "My body is overloaded." When your child can use the exact same words to get help, whether they're with you or their teacher, it dramatically reduces the mental load and helps their nervous system regulate more quickly. They know they'll be understood no matter where they are. Integration isn't a set-it-and-forget-it task. It thrives on regular communication. Think of it as a continuous feedback loop. First, create a gentle after-school check-in routine. Instead of, "How was school?" try structured questions like, "What felt good today?" or "What was the hardest part of your day?" This gives you specific information you can share with the school if you see a pattern emerging. Next, establish a simple, consistent way to update the school. This doesn't have to be a huge time commitment. A weekly email or a shared communication notebook can work wonders. Share the wins and the challenges. Celebrate that your child successfully used their calm-down corner, and also mention if they're struggling with a new routine. Finally, schedule periodic review meetings with the school's support team. This is where you all come together to review what's working, what needs adjusting, and plan for upcoming events, like a school trip, so everyone is prepared to support your child. At the heart of anxiety for many autistic children is a feeling of unpredictability and a lack of control. By integrating home and school strategies, we directly address these core needs. Your morning routine, homework routine, and bedtime routine should echo the predictable structures used at school. If countdown timers and visual schedules are used for transitions in the classroom, use them for transitions at home. This creates a rhythm your child can depend on. Just as important is promoting autonomy. Let your child have a say in their coping strategies. Ask them, which quiet space do you want to use? Or, which sensory tool feels best for you today? When children get to practice making these choices in both environments, their brain learns that they have some control over their world. That feeling of agency is a powerful antidote to anxiety. Ultimately, our goal is to empower our children to manage their own anxiety. This is called self-regulation, and we can teach it by modeling it consistently. At home and at school, adults can model slow breathing and a calm voice when things get stressful. We can label our own feelings. I'm feeling a little overwhelmed, so I'm going to take a few deep breaths. When a child sees the adults around them using the same calming strategies, they start to internalize them. After an anxious moment has passed and everyone is calm, have a gentle, reflective conversation. You could say, "You used your headphones at school today when the bell rang. Did that help?" Or, "I noticed you went to your calm corner after we got home. What helped you feel better?" These conversations teach your child to understand their own body and what it needs, which is a critical skill for life. Change is hard, and transitions like moving to a new grade or getting a new teacher are often peak anxiety periods. A coordinated plan is your best defense. Start by previewing the changes at home. Use social stories or visual schedules to walk your child through what the new classroom or routine will look like. Then, share this transition plan with the school. Make sure all the familiar support tools, the sensory items, the visual cues, will be ready and waiting for them in the new environment. After the change happens, check in, see what worked, and adjust your plan as needed. This teamwork can turn a potentially terrifying experience into a manageable one. Remember to empower your child as a true partner in this process. Invite them to help choose the tools and strategies for their toolkit. Encourage them to track their own stress levels using a simple visual scale, and most importantly, praise their efforts. When you see them using a coping skill, acknowledge it. Say, "I saw you take a deep breath when you felt frustrated. That was a great choice." This builds their confidence and reduces feelings of helplessness. They are not just a recipient of help, they are the expert on their own experience and an active problem solver. Of course, there will be setbacks. Even with the best laid plans, some days will be harder than others, and that's completely normal. The key is to respond with resilience, not panic. First, normalize it. Reassure your child and yourself that having an anxious day doesn't mean you've failed. It's just part of the process. Then get curious. Problem solve together to figure out what might have triggered the spike in anxiety and adjust your strategies without judgment. Keep the lines of communication with the school open, and always celebrate the successes. Remind your child of all the times they successfully navigated a tough moment. Integrating your strategies is the path to long-term success. When home and school work in harmony, anxiety becomes more manageable, and your child gains a profound sense of predictability and control. You, as a parent, will feel more empowered, and teachers will see a child who is more engaged and ready to learn. It takes consistency, patience, and collaboration, but it is so worth it. As one parent beautifully put it, "Seeing my child move from panic in the morning to calmly preparing for school over 6 months was life-changing. It wasn't magic, it was the consistent strategies we all used together." Thank you so much for joining me on this journey. I hope these strategies bring more calm and confidence to your family. If you found this helpful, please like, subscribe, and share it with anyone who might benefit. See you in the next video.